Vienna, fondly known as the City of Music. That first morning, we walked through the Stadspark towards the city, passing statues of various dignitaries, including, of course, Johann Strauss, the father of the waltz. It was a beautiful and peaceful setting. The Ringstrasse, lined with grand buildings, monuments and parks. Lovely, wide, clean pedestrian walkways, well, some people walk, lined with restaurants, lead to St. Stephen's Cathedral. This magnificent building stands on the ruins of two earlier churches. The first, a parish church consecrated in 1147. It's the most important religious building in Vienna and has borne witness to many important events in Habsburg and Austrian history. The Hundertwasser House is an apartment house built after the idea and concept of Austrian artist Friedrich Hundertwasser. This expressionist landmark of Vienna and the adjacent craft shops are a very unusual place to do some browsing. The next day, we visited Schönbrunn Palace, which was the former imperial summer residence. The 1400-odd-room Baroque palace was home to the Habsburg dynasty for over 6 centuries. Later, we had dinner in the adjacent restaurant, followed by a recital in the historical Palace Orangery. Their orchestra regularly interprets works from Mozart and Strauss. The next day, we were off to the Hofburg Palace. Previously the Habsburg Winter Palace, but now the official residence and workplace of the President of Austria. And home to the Spanish riding school and the Lipizzanos. We took a few clips, but were stopped by the establishment, so this is all we got. We finished our day off by going to Figlmüller's, famous for their Vienna schnitzel. And it was very good. Note the queue when we left. The restaurants were still packed as we walked home through the park. Goodbye, Mr. Strauss. We arrived at our lodgings in Budapest, number 15, whatever street. And oh my word, the front doors didn't exactly exude that warm feeling of, hey, this is where I want to sleep tonight. Then we opened the door. Oh my God. Suffice to say, when we finally got to the apartment, it was really great. Wasting no time, we jumped on a tube and went into the city to look around. A mixture of new and old buildings. The beautiful St. Stephen's Basilica. This site was a theatre in the 18th century, where animal fights were hosted. Fascinating wood and wrought iron doors are inlaid with the 12 apostles in bronze. Ice cream, anyone?
Come on, take a lick.
On our walk down to the river, we passed Stradivarius giving a curbside recital. We decided to take a cruise up the Danube, passing the magnificent Hungarian Parliament buildings, Buda Castle, Fishermen's Bastions, the Citadella, and more. Wow, presumably used for Danube cruises? The Doheny Street Synagogue has a memory park in the rear courtyard. It holds the memorial of the Hungarian Jewish martyrs. Resembling a weeping willow, the leaves bear inscriptions with the names of the victims. At least 400,000 Hungarian Jews were murdered by the Nazis. 60 Andrassy Street, the House of Terror, is a museum containing exhibits relating to the fascist and communist regimes in 20th century Hungary. It's a memorial to the victims of these regimes, including those detained, interrogated, tortured and killed in the building. It also contains exhibits relating to Hungarian organizations, such as the fascist Arrow Cross Party and the communist AVH, which was similar to the Soviet Union KGB secret police. Part of the exhibition takes you to the basement, where you can see examples of the cells that the AVH used to break the will of their prisoners.
Akiket beakasztottak, az sok.
The shoes on the Danube bank. These iron shoes are a memorial to honor the people who were killed by fascist Arrow Cross militiamen in Budapest during World War II. They were ordered to take off their shoes and were shot at the edge of the water so that their bodies fell into the river and were carried away. Hero Square is one of the major squares in Budapest. It features the 7 chieftains of the Magyars and other important Hungarian national leaders, as well as the tomb of the unknown soldier. The back of the monument consists of 2 matching colonnades, each with 7 statues representing great figures of Hungarian history. The Citadella was a fortification strategically built on the top of Gellert Hill after the suppression of the Hungarian Revolution. Battle-scarred walls are still evident. And pictures from the past. The Liberty statue flanks the fortress on one side and commemorates those who sacrificed their lives for the independence, freedom and prosperity of Hungary. You get good views of the Danube, Buda Castle and surrounds from here. The chain bridge was the first permanent bridge across the Danube in Hungary. It was opened in the mid-1800s and was regarded as one of the modern world's engineering wonders. It asserted an enormous significance in the country's economic, social and cultural life. On the Buddha side of the bridge is the funicular up to Buddha Castle. It was the second funicular in Europe at the time. During the Second World War, the cars and the terminals were destroyed by bombs. They only reopened it again in 1986. Looks like they're changing the guards. Buddha Castle is the historical castle and palace complex of the Hungarian kings in Budapest. It was first completed in 1265, but the massive Baroque palace today, occupying most of the site, was built in the 1700s. Matthias Church is also located atop the Buddha Castle hill. The Fishermen's Bastions, so called because the Buddha side castle wall was protected by the Fishermen's Guild. From the towers and the terrace, a panoramic view exists of the Danube and Pest to the east. The Great Market Hall offers a huge variety of stalls on 3 floors. It's enormous. We headed to the upper floor where the food was. But so had everybody else. It was packed. We finally managed to buy something to eat and find a place to sit. That afternoon, we went on a wine tour of 3 fairly small wine farms. We found the wines a little thin and lacking body and complexity. But from what we heard, this particular area is not a great producer of wine, especially white wine. However, it was very pleasant to get out of the city's hustle and bustle for a while.
And I think they're going to use it for the sparkling wine base.
For me, this is perfect.
Good afternoon, welcome everyone. Welcome to the beautiful valley.
Send you walk down, yeah.
Let me go. Okay. So, welcome to our kingdom. This is the pilgrim's cellar. The cellar, the wines.
Okay, so they have 4 rooms because you know in this small village we don't have a hotel. As well as here is the date when it was built, 1872. So this is the original one that was built by the...
At the last farm, we had dinner, which was served in a lovely setting. I guess we're a little spoiled coming from the Western Cape. On our last evening, we had booked a night dinner cruise on the Danube, and it was absolutely magical. After 4 wonderful days in Budapest, we arrived in Megène, in France, to barge down the Nivernais Canal to Tannay for a week. That's our barge. Then to the local supermarket to stock up.
Salted butter.
Les fighting the trolley. And a game of bulls. The beautiful view from our lounge. And then we set off. Baguettes for breakfast. We stopped at this little town and went for a walk. And watched the ducks. This is Auxerre, a very beautiful but busy city. We couldn't find moorings, so decided to keep going. More bulls. Another lock. Can you do it? Yes! We found a stray tap and filled up with water. And went in to the nearby village. It seems that French women skinner too. Ah, a pub. What a stunning setting. Time to stop for a braai. Lunch is served.
Oh, that's quite a nice cheese.
Is it? Nice, nice. Good cheese.
And outside, the ducks were having lunch too. Another lock before we entered this sort of little harbour. We walked into town and found this restaurant to have a genuine French meal in. Suffice to say, the food was terrible. On we go and reach another lock.
Yay!
And another. We stop for more supplies, and once again, Les fights to control the trolley. Yet another lock at this village on the hill. We came across this war memorial dedicated to children affected by the war. We managed to buy some eggs and trusted Brodwin to carry them carefully all the way back to the barge. This was a particularly interesting part of the canal, flanked by these limestone cliffs. A gatekeeper's quaint cottage.
microwave.
Warm plates.
Supper was great, and note the French wine. Beautiful and peaceful. We passed these rolling yellow hills of rapeseed. Unfortunately, it was overcast. Another of those cute gatekeepers' cottages. Interesting road bridge. Captain Randall at the helm. Heavy concentration. We stopped at this little place for the night, wandered around and saw no one. Strange. Another great dinner in beautiful surroundings. And woke up to the sound of rain on the roof. Nevertheless, we forged ahead. With the weather still lousy, we found Clamsey and decided to spend our last couple of days here. It's a beautiful old medieval town founded around 600 AD. In later years, it enjoyed great prosperity thanks to the development of the flottage de bois, by which timber from the local forests was processed and floated down to Paris. Our first B&B breakfast, with entertainment nogal. And mommy and baby looking on. The centre of Clamsey has been classified by the French government as a protected sector and consists of 13th to 16th century houses, still remarkably intact, surrounded by 19th century houses. The Church of St. Martin dates chiefly from the 13th to 15th centuries and was classified as an historical monument in 1840. Saturdays was market day in the streets and in a hall near the church. It looked very clean and well presented. Interesting that they provide bags to clean up after your dog. You can lead a horse to water, but... Then we took a taxi to the very picturesque village of nearby Vézelay, established in the 9th century. Its most outstanding feature is the Benedictine Abbey at the top of the hill. The crypt below is said to hold the relics of Mary Magdalene and were brought here in the 11th century, resulting in a huge influx of pilgrims. Although in the heart of France, we really enjoyed the spicy tangines at the Marrakesh restaurant. And the walk home past the gloriously lit church. Trust us to find the caves. A bit of an upmarket wine shop. This is euros, so the middle bottle is just under 1,000 rand. The owner had this handy gadget that could take out a sample of wine without opening the bottle. At our B&B, we found a medieval one.
And pull the crank down.
Every household needs
Voila.
one of these.
Not far from our B&B were parts of the old, dark and mysterious medieval walls and buildings from many hundreds of years ago.
Look at the allotment here.
It's time to leave Clamsey and head for Paris and home.